So we can begin now. A very good evening to one and all present here. I'm Dipali, the coordinator at Law Internship and the moderator for today's interactive session. Today we have among us Advocate Manashi Bhushan ma'am. Ma'am is a graduate from Government Law College, Mumbai, and also a topper of Mumbai University. Ma'am holds a BLS LLB degree from GLC Mumbai, PG Diploma in Human Rights Law from NLSIU Bangalore, and Diploma in Cyber Law from Ashton Law School, Cyber Law. While at GLC, she was awarded with Yashwant Dalal Cup, Nivedita Nathani Memorial Award, Chief Justice M.C. Chagla Memorial Award, and scholarship twice, and even Godrej Foundation Scholarship. She was the General Secretary of the Legal Aid Committee and the founding member of the ADR cell in her college. Currently, she is a practicing advocate in Delhi High Court and does civil, criminal, matrimonial, check bouncing service, and arbitration matters. She delivers guest lectures in various colleges. So, we welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for this long introduction. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So today, ma'am is going to discuss about how to file a writ petition. I request the participants to turn on their videos and keep their mics on mute. Furtherly, if you're having any kind of query, you can ask to ma'am by raising your hand, or else you can write it in the chat box itself. So without any further delay, let's begin the session for today. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dipali. Hello all, I hope you all are having a good time on a Monday evening and are ready to learn more about writ petitions. So firstly, do you all know, I believe you all are at least in first year, second year of your law school. Have you ever heard of the terminology called writ? Yes, okay. I see some heads nodding. Yes, that's great. And by any chance, do you know under what law domain will writ fall? Anybody who wants to take a guess here? You can unmute yourself, need not type in the chat box. We can have an interactive session here. I see Varun speaking something. Okay. I believe Varun is saying constitution and even Aditi is saying constitution. That's absolutely correct. Yes, your constitution law. But interestingly, in your constitution, when you see the Bare Act, writ is not mentioned anywhere over there. So let's just see where exactly writ comes from. So I'm sharing my screen. Just let me know if you can see the screen. So today I am told that we need to have a session on essentials of drafting of a writ petition. But before I start with how to draft a writ petition, what is more important is we need to firstly understand what is writ petition. What exactly does it mean? What are its types? And how to go about then drafting. Firstly, before drafting is the ultimate step, I would say. Whenever you are working as a lawyer, as an intern, whenever you are in a process of going ahead with drafting, your drafting should be your last step towards finalizing a writ petition. Initially, firstly, you should know what is writ petition. Secondly, what are the facts of the case? Facts are that it is a criminal matter. It is a matter wherein one person has slapped the other person. It's against an individual. Will you file a writ in that case? Or will you go ahead and file a complaint, police complaint, or say section 156(3) CRPC complaint before magistrate, saying that I have been assaulted or there has been simple hurt or grievous hurt? In that eventuality, writ would not lie, because if you don't know what exactly writ is, you will probably tell to your client that let's go and file a writ petition, which is an incorrect recourse. So drafting is, I would say, a latter part of the today's session, what we'll deal with, because that's the latter part of how you go about the entire case. The initial part would be, and more importantly would be, what are the facts of the case? After seeing the facts, are these facts as such that it can fall under one of the writs, whichever writ you are planning to file in the court? Once you understand that yes, facts are matching and this is the appropriate writ, we need to go ahead with this, then you research as to what are the judgments, what are the precedents regarding it. Accordingly, how courts have held in such matters, is such writ maintainable, or are there other remedies which I need to exhaust first and then go for a writ petition? So after analyzing all of it, then you jump on to drafting, then you sit and then you say, okay, fine, now I'm clear with everything. Now let me draft whatever I want to draft ahead with. Then you draft the writ petition. That we'll talk about in some time. So firstly, before we start the session, I ask you, what is a writ petition? What is a writ petition? Does someone wants to take a guess? What is a writ? Come on, I expect at least one of you. There are 57 of us. One of you would be knowing about it. You can unmute yourself and answer. Okay. Anuparna says it is Article 32 of the Indian Constitution. Absolutely correct. Yes. Amongst various articles, Article 32 is a way to enforce your remedy by way of a writ petition when you file it in the Supreme Court. A petition filed if fundamental rights are violated, Aditi says this. An order given by a court, Navnita says this. Yes, absolutely correct, Aditi and Navnita. Basically, writ petition is an order from the court. You go to a court, you will not go to your principal of your college, you will not go to an individual body, you will go to a competent court of India. And what is the competent court? We'll understand in some time whether it is Supreme Court or whether, yes, Preeti is right here. Article 32 is for the Supreme Court. And Article 226 is for the High Court. So yes, these courts are the competent courts. You go to these courts and you don't go to an individual, you don't go to a private entity over here. And yes, it is against, whenever fundamental rights are violated, it is for enforcement of those fundamental rights. It is not for enforcement of any other right, at least in Supreme Court. In High Court, it is for enforcement of your legal rights as well, because High Court has a wider ambit than Supreme Court. Interestingly, very new to hear that Supreme Court is having narrower ambit and High Court is having larger ambit. Why is that so? Because Article 226 will then get accompanied with Article 227, which provides High Court with the power that it can supervise lower courts, and even for your legal right, wherein ancillarily, even if fundamental right is violated, you can directly go to a High Court. You need not go to a district court. You need not go for a suit, which is a longer process for enforcing, for seeking remedy. And writ, however, is a urgent recourse. You will get a quicker way out, a solution in such eventuality. So yes, writ is an order issued to authorities, can be single, can be many. Can it be against an individual? We'll see it in some time. And it is given by a court. And in writ, it is what we are requesting to the court is, please remedy that our fundamental right or legal right has been violated. That is writ. What are the types of writ? Does anyone know about it?
Habeas corpus, mandamus, certiorari, quo warranto,
very good,
prohibition.
Gurnoor. These are 5 types of writs. We'll quickly study them. What are these 5 types? So Article 32 and 226, as I said, you go to Supreme Court under Article 32. You go to High Court under Article 226, and what do you file? You file a writ petition. And what type of writ will you file? You file one of these 5 types of writ petition over here. It is habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and quo warranto. 5 types of writs you file in such courts. Now, interestingly, can someone tell me what is Article 12 and 13 of your Indian Constitution? Article 12 is about
definition of state.
Exactly. Preeti is right here. Article 12 and 13 firstly tells us what is law, and secondly tells us what is state. So you enforce your, under Article 32, whenever you go and enforce your violation of fundamental rights by way of writ in the Supreme Court, you will go against the state over here. And state is similarly, as you see, under RTI Act, Section 2H, which tells about what is a public authority. Similarly, state is also administratively controlled and financially governed by a state body. Can be state government, can be central government, can be a government organization, can be your college also if you're studying in a government college. So you can go, you can sue your college, but you cannot sue your principal in his personal capacity because he is not state. He is acting in his professional capacity, which is he is acting as a principal of a government body, which is probably at the time when college was set up. At that time, it had taken money, it had taken aid from the government. Or let us say college is governed by the government. Say UGC, or UGC is anyways a controlling body, but say it is a state university. It is under, say, Delhi University, Mumbai University, any other university. So in that eventuality, you can sue your college also, because it will somewhere come under the ambit of state. Under Article 30, you enforce your fundamental rights. Under Article 226, as I said, you enforce your fundamental as well as legal rights. So High Court will have larger ambit. Now, quickly moving, I believe most of you would know about this. What is habeas corpus? Habeas corpus is bring the body. Somebody, like today, you go out in pandemic, you were moving out, there was lockdown which was imposed. You wanted to go out, you wanted to go on stroll, you were tired sitting at home, say for a year. And then police, let us say a person allegedly as police officer, let us say actually police officer detains you, arrests you and puts you in the prison, say in police custody or in judicial custody, whatever it is, puts you in custody. Now, there is no such order which allows a police officer to arrest a person. It can maximum fine a person. It can maximum, say, reprimand a person by, say, keeping him in the police station, say, for 1 hour or 2 hours, but definitely not putting behind you bars. And let's say it can reprimand you, insult you, he can do that, and then you are supposed to go back to your home. He can probably forfeit your, seize your vehicle for some time, or whatever vehicle you were roaming. He can do all of that. But suppose he arrests you, and there is no such authority given to the police officer, and there is no such justification which is given by the police officer that why is he arresting you. You feel that this is unfair. What do? Will you slap him back? Will you stab him? Will you like commit another offense on him, or what will you do? Your recourse is, in this eventuality, you will file a habeas corpus petition, which means that how did you detain me? You will go to the court immediately. Suppose if you are unable to hire a lawyer, then in that eventuality, any of your family members, your friends, your well-wishers will immediately move to the court for habeas corpus and would tell to the court that this detention is illegal. It is not permissible. It is not authorized by law, and therefore release this person. Court will immediately look into the matter. Court will not conduct a suit over here, will not conduct a trial over here, will not look into the evidences, will not call somebody, will ask for it. Court will prima facie see the documents. If necessary, will examine one person, ask questions, ask clarifications from that police officer, and immediately give a result. Of course, in trial, it is a longer process because evidence takes place in trial. Prosecution witnesses come in, defense witnesses come in, they are cross-examined, issues are framed before that. After that, final arguments takes place, and then a final judgment comes in. So writs, for that matter, are speedier recourse remedy, and it can be dealt with faster by the court rather than what a suit would do. So in that eventuality, you will ask for release of the person who has been illegally detained. What is mandamus? Mandamus means we command. We want this to happen. It can be for, say, any government entity, for, say, a lower court, any public authority, public body, state governed body, wherein something wrong is taking place. And then you go to the court and you tell that court kindly command this authority or this body that they are functioning incorrectly. They need to function properly. So suppose there are no lectures taking place in your colleges. And let us assume you are studying in a government college. And subsequently, since there are no lectures, there are no examination, and year has passed and you are still sitting in your same academic year, whatever you were in, first year, second year. What you'll do, you will not file a suit against college. You'll immediately file a writ petition of mandamus in the relevant high court, and you will tell that court will kindly direct, you will say kindly command to the college that they need to conduct examinations. If they are not conducting examinations, then they need to develop a mechanism for passing us, for elevating us into the next grade. So that petition can be filed by a person who's aggrieved. Can this petition also be filed by, say, some friend of yours who's not in your college? In public interest, can he file it? Say students are from a remote village, which is very far located from the high court, relevant high court. This person, this student approaches one of his friends and tells, listen, I am very fed up. Our college is not functioning properly. They are not even elevating us in the next class. What to do? And this friend feels that, oh, this is injustice being done to my friend. So I file a writ petition for all of my friends there, or for all the students of that college. Can he do that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Is locus standi required in writ petition or not? So Shreya says, yes, he can do that. That's what you
Yes,
say?
ma'am, he can.
Great. So Shreya, Diksha, Anuparna, Adarsh are absolutely correct here. Yes, locus standi is not an essential thing in a writ petition. Of course, if you are having a locus standi, you will never be disregarded. But even if in public interest you are filing a petition in the court, then that is also permissible. That's the difference between a writ petition and a public interest litigation. In writ petition, mostly the petitioner is the aggrieved party. In public interest litigation, the petitioner need not be the aggrieved party, can file a petition in the interest of the public. He himself is not a victim or affected by that situation. Okay. Next is prohibition. Prohibition means please don't do this. Stop it, whatever you are doing. You are stayed from doing this. So prohibition can be done on lower courts as well. That whatever lower court is doing, say an incorrect order has been passed. In your opinion, you are the aggrieved party. You had filed a suit in the court. And then the court had, instead of granting you a relief, had rather imposed cost on you and has said that this is a bogus suit. And now you feel that this was wrong, which was done by the court. You immediately go, you can go either one in appeal against that order, if that's a final order or a judgment, else you can file a writ of prohibition. That, listen, this court didn't have power to hear this matter. It acted beyond its jurisdiction. This suit should have gone, say, filed in Delhi, but it was filed, say, Mumbai. How can Mumbai court exercise power over a matter which is situated in Delhi? So kindly prohibit Mumbai court from working further, from doing anything further in this matter. So you yourself are aggrieved. So one is go in the appeal, which is a longer duration, I would say. Again, it will take some time. Second is go by way of writ. Go to the High Court, go to the Supreme Court, whichever court is the correct appropriate forum. File a writ of prohibition there. So this is what will happen. Hey, lower court, we forbid you from deciding anything on this matter any further. Lower court was not functioning correctly. Lower court was functioning as per its whims and fancies. By listening to all facts and arguments, this is the lower court which was going to argue anything against this person, wherein this court didn't have powers. It is acting beyond its jurisdiction. So then higher court will prohibit the lower court. What is writ of certiorari? Can anyone tell me what is writ of certiorari? Bring the record. Prohibition is stop, don't function any further. Certiorari is bring the record. So higher court wants to examine what the lower court is doing. So higher court will tell to the lower court, listen, I think there is something wrong going on over here. You get the record over here. So bring the record. I will look into the records, and then accordingly high court will adjudicate on its matter. Or high court will give a temporary relief to the aggrieved person, will say that, listen, lower court will not hear on this aspect. On this aspect, high court will hear. And with regard to rest of the matter will remand back to the lower court. So certiorari is for that purpose. It is both a preventive as well as curative. If something wrong has happened, then it will cure the wrong which has happened. And yes, Rituja? Are you saying something, Rituja?
8843.
Okay. So certiorari can be, if wrong has happened, then it can cure it. And if certiorari something wrong is going to happen, then also you can go as a matter of precaution by way of certiorari writ, wherein you tell to the higher court, listen, but lower court is not functioning properly. So please look into this matter. So high court will bring the records, will look into it, and then will adjudicate on that aspect. So writ of certiorari, what the high court will say, hey lower court, we want this case to be transferred to us. We will hear this matter. And we give you lifetime imprisonment. Lower court was saying this to the, say, accused. So in that eventuality, accused moves to the high court and immediately he will get a relief. Lower court will not adjudicate on that matter any further. What is the last writ? Quo warranto. By what authority? What is my authority that I am conducting a session here today? Assuming law internships is a government body. What is my authority? Am I actually a lawyer? Am I actually a person authorized by law internships to conduct a session today, or I myself to declare that I'll take a session and I've hacked their systems and I'm conducting a session here? Or suppose, so this is just a, say, a lighter note example. The serious examples would be, suppose I have acquired one of the positions, key roles, or say even non-key roles in one of the government bodies. And you feel that I'm not an eligible person. I don't have requisite qualifications. I don't have requisite experience. I have forged my degrees, and therefore I have represented myself as a capable and eligible candidate. However, I am not so. In that eventuality, you will challenge my appointment before the court, not by way of a suit, but by way of a writ. I mean, of course, you can do it by suit also, but this writ specifically allows you to go to directly High Court and seek immediate release. That by what authority is this person appointed here? And then High Court will examine. Again, it will not conduct suit. However, in writ petitions, court still has power that if it wants to examine parties, it can examine parties. Cross-examination can take place. And then eventually it will decide on it whether this person was correctly appointed, was correctly holding the whatever position he was holding or not. Now, interesting question. Can we file a quo warranto petition against all the ministers in political parties? This is something you should look into it. Whether political parties are government bodies or not. Whether ruling party is a government body or not. So this answer to this will lie under your elections laws. What political parties are they taking aid from the government or they are not? If they are taking aid, then they become a part of government, state. If they are not, then even candidates, suppose a bill comes in, there is already a bill which has been tabled which says, or there are a lot of talks which says that politicians should also have certain eligibilities, say educational eligibilities, say no criminal record. All of this is already there, which is in talks. And suppose there's a candidate who has criminal background, who is uneducated and is still contesting elections. In that eventuality, can you file a writ of quo warranto? That by what authority is he the minister of this candidate of this say state or whatever, whichever area it is. Now, once you understand, so writ of quo warranto is that the public office is there, and then writ court will tell by what authority are you holding this office. There needs to be a public office. It cannot be against in a private setup. It cannot be in your private college. You're frustrated with your principal. Your principal is asking you to attend college regularly. There is attendance issue. You cannot file a writ against your principal because if you are studying in a private college, because therefore your writ will not be maintainable. Now the question comes in whether fundamental rights are violated only then you can file a writ, or generally a writ petition is filed against only government bodies or state bodies. These two interesting questions. So as I said, fundamental rights and legal rights go to High Court. Fundamental rights only is Supreme Court. Against government bodies, yes. Against individuals too, you can go, provided they should be somehow related to the whatever act has been committed. There should be some government involvement in it. So I suppose sue my college, which is a government college. Along with that, I sue the second respondent I make is the principal. Now, I'm not making him in his individual capacity. I'm making him in his professional capacity, that he is holding a position of a government body. So I can make principal as well as my first respondent would be college. And before, ideally, it would be first would be whatever university my college is affiliated to, be it a government college. Second would be the college and third would be the principal. Or college through principal can be my second respondent. Now, how do you file a writ petition? Who can tell me that? How do you file a writ petition? Where do you file a writ petition? Which courts? District courts? Family courts?
In Supreme Court and
Very
High Court.
good. Supreme Court and High Court. And how do you file it? So there are specific formats. For Supreme Court, there is a specific format. You have to adhere to that. There is an affidavit, there is paper book, there is index. Your High Court also has specific formats. I have put in one format for High Court towards the end. Once we are done with the entire knowing the nuances of how to draft the writ petition, then we look into it. So now tell me, this is a general question. What are the essentials of drafting? What one should look into while drafting? Say if you're drafting a letter also to say law internships, telling them that we need to have more sessions on drafting. So what will you write? What exactly you should focus on in such draft? Will you talk about that law internship is this organization established in this year, these many people are there, this is the director, this is the body, this person lives here, this person has this qualification? Do you elaborate on all those things, or those are ancillary, those are not really relevant to the matter? Usage.
And we need to make sure that why particularly we are referring to law internships as why is the reason why we want law internships particularly to conduct that particular research, or why is it in their jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Then we'll be talking about the essentials and all those requirements that will be after that,
Right.
all these requirements.
Right.
So
Right. Right. Absolutely right, Diksha. So Ankita says that use simple language which is understandable by layman, of course. Now, when I relate as to what all you said to a writ petition, what do I gather? Firstly, there needs to be some problem. If there is no problem, then why do you go to the High Court or Supreme Court? So there needs to be a problem first. So initially in your draft, what will you write? You will write the facts of the matter. How the problem arises from the facts. You will tell to the court that these are the facts. So initially what you will write is, write the facts of the matter. What is the subject? Harsh is right here. What is the subject or what is the matter? You tell that to the court that this is the problem. So let us take for an example a last writ petition which I got a favorable order say 2 days back. What happened there? There is a student who had appeared in class 10th CBSE examination, and thereafter in 11th class when he went, he saw his mark sheet of 10th class. He found that his father's name is incorrect over here. His father's name should have been XYZ. His father's name was only a part of it was written, not the correct name. So initially he wrote a letter to CBSE and to the school saying that kindly correct this name. But CBSE rejected their application, saying that you yourself had written this in your application register, in the application form when you took admission in this college. So it was your mistake. We are not going to rectify it. It rejected its application. And then thereafter the student went to the court, sued the school as well as CBSE and sought relief from the court by writ of, what writ will the student file here? Habeas corpus. Was he detained? Yes or no? Was he detained? No. So no writ of habeas corpus. Was he challenging any appointment? Quo warranto will take place over here?
no, ma'am.
No. Was he, yes. Siddharth is right here. Was he prohibiting somebody to stop acting any lower court? Was he telling that to any of the lower courts? Had he gone to the lower courts for that matter earlier? No? Yes. Yes, all of you are right here, but I'm asking, had he gone to any of the lower courts or he had simply gone to CBSE and then eventually gone to the High Court?
No, ma'am, he had not gone to any low.
Right. So Diksha is right here. No lower court, so no certiorari and no prohibition. What is left now? Mandamus. What does mandamus say? We command. So High Court will command to CBSE that we are telling you that correct the person's father's name over here. It is incorrect in his mark sheet. So writ of mandamus will be filed over here. So I saw what are the facts. And then I analyzed what are the types of writs. And then I saw, oh, this exactly fits in mandamus. So we need to file mandamus here. All other writs are not really useful over here. So once you identify what's the problem, once you see the facts, you need to scrutinize all the facts over here. And then you analyze it with the law. You correlate the facts with law and then come to a conclusion that this is the recourse which we are going to take place in such eventuality. First is this step whenever you are drafting a writ petition. Second step. Now, if I was the lawyer, if student had directly come to me and I would have directly rushed to High Court, what would High Court would have done over there? What would High Court have said? High Court would have said possibly that why didn't you talk to school about this? Why didn't you talk to CBSE about this? Or High Court will start taking such petitions. Anybody who wants any relief, come to us first. We are here to solve your problems. Is this what High Court will say? Who will tell?
No, ma'am.
It would simply pile up the cases and burden the High Court.
Right, right. So High Court also demands that you exhaust all your remedies which are there first. And then as a last recourse, come to us. Or if there is an alternative, of course, in this eventuality also there was an alternative to file a suit. I could have done that. But my relief was very urgent. So I had to file a writ petition which was falling under the correct petition, which is mandamus. So I filed a mandamus and High Court did not reject that writ petition saying that you can file a suit, go and file a suit. That did not happen. Since I had gone to CBSE and I had written letter to school earlier, client had written the letter to school earlier, that's why school had rejected the application, CBSE had rejected the application, that's why I was aggrieved by their acts and therefore I had no other recourse but to go to High Court. And High Court entertained my petition in such eventuality. So over here, you need to firstly exhaust all your alternatives, all your remedies, and then go to the appropriate forum, be it High Court or be it Supreme Court. That is the second thing what you need to do, that what are the possible recourses in such eventuality? What can we do? This is the second step. Aditi asked, ma'am, then why do people file suits where writs are given a higher preference in court? As I said, suppose there is a matter, a person slaps the other person, or there is a theft which is being committed. Can theft fall under any of the 5 writs? Can an offense which was committed by individual, can you seek recourse for your fundamental rights violation against an individual which is not a state in High Court? What is the fundamental right which has got violated in the offense of theft? Right to equality, right to religion, right to freedom of speech, right to life, possibly right to life, yes. But in that eventuality, everything is right to life. If I'm unable to walk on roads properly, my right to life has been violated. If I'm unable to participate in this meeting by unmuting myself, my network issues are there. I'm in a remote area. I don't have network. Or say I am financially not equipped enough to have a Wi-Fi, high-speed Wi-Fi at my home. My right to life is violated. If I start analyzing and if I start making an analogy like this, equating everything with my fundamental rights, and everything will be violation of right to life. Because right to life is right to live with dignity. So everything cannot fall under writs. And especially, secondly, more importantly, this is an offense committed by an individual, Aditi. So individual recourse is not, if there is a violation by an individual, your recourse is not it. Your recourse is a criminal complaint. Go under CRPC. So you understand that, Aditi? I don't think so. I can see you, but you can type it. Okay. Okay. Now, third thing, when a matter comes to you, after you analyze everything, now third thing you need to know is, see, writ's title might be different. Your title is something which you'll write, writ petition under Article 226, seeking writ of mandamus or any other appropriate order or direction from this court, or any other appropriate writ. In the prayer clause also you write the same thing. But what you need to write in the petition is firstly list of dates. Even in High Court and in Supreme Court, what you write first is list of dates. List of dates is basically a timeline. On this date, this happened. On this date, my 10th class mark sheet came. On this date, I realized that this is the mistake which I had committed. Third thing is, in class 11th, I wanted to change my mark sheet, so I approached school on this date. My school on this date rejected the application. Thereafter, on this date, I filed a application in CBSE. On this date, they rejected my application. Therefore, now aggrieved by all of this, I am now approaching the High Court. So you put a list of dates. This is in a separate piece of paper, you are writing it, and then your main petition will start. What do you write in the main petition? And of course, before list of dates, as I said, you need to analyze as to whom all do you want to sue. Will you sue school in this eventuality, in this circumstance? Will you sue school? Will you make school as one of the respondent? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, good, no.
Yes, ma'am.
Will you make CBSE as one of the respondents, or you will make only school as respondent over here? School is a private school, by the way, over here. It's not a public, it's not a
CBSE as well.
Then
CBSE as well.
also.
Because your primary relief will lie against CBSE. CBSE is the one who's going to change the mark sheet. It is not the school. So CBSE will also be your second respondent. Do you wish to make the teacher who had signed the class 10th report card as the respondent over here?
No, ma'am.
No, because she was acting as a teacher. Even though she was acting as a teacher, once you sue school, that is sufficient. Whatever appropriate relief is to be granted, school will do the needful. You need not sue the teacher in her personal capacity. Possibly there was negligence on her part. Possibly there was negligence on the part of the clerk who was admitting the student at the time of admission, say 10 years back when he was in nursery. So at that time, possibly there was a lacking on the part of the officer, of the clerk, whosoever was sitting in, whosoever was writing the name in the admission register. But I will not sue him. I will sue school. I will sue CBSE. So initially what you do is you make a memo of parties. Memo of party means I, petitioner, petitioner's name would be there, versus against whom are you filing this petition? Those two parties, whichever party. So my first party was CBSE, second party was the school. Now, after after memo of parties, I go to list of dates. As I said, a chronology of events as to what happened on what date. Now my petition would begin. Petition would start with that before this honorable court, title of the matter. Say Mansi Bhushan versus CBSE and another ANR. ANR means the school is the second party. Then you start with the title, writ petition under Article 226 of Indian Constitution for issuance of writ of mandamus or any other appropriate writ / order / direction by this honorable court filed under Article 226. I've already written it at the beginning under Article 226. Once I'm done writing my title, then I go para-wise, I start writing the facts. So I write facts in brief, will be my heading. Para number 1, I, Mansi Bhushan, took admission in this college or this school on this date. Full stop. Next para. On this date, I had taken class 10th examination, board examinations. Full stop. Next para. On this date, the results were announced. So you write it always in your third form, like that the petitioner had sought admission in this school. I don't write I did it. It is not in first person, not in second person. It's always in third person. That the petitioner had sought admission in respondent number 2 in whatever school name, bracket mein respondent number 2 on this date, in this year, whatever date is there. Next para, that the petitioner had appeared for class 10 CBSE examinations held by respondent number 1, which is CBSE, in bracket you can write respondent number 1. Hereinafter referred to as not Central Board of Secondary Education, you write CBSE. For the sake of brevity, you are not mentioning long names again and again. Had taken the examination of class 10th board papers, and on this date the results were announced. That on this date, on seeing the website, the petitioner realized that his father's name was incorrectly spelled out in the mark sheet. On this date, when the hard copy of the mark sheet came into the hands of petitioner, the petitioner figured that why was this, petitioner again saw that there was a mistake in the spelling of name of his father. On this date, petitioner, that on whatever date, petitioner went to the respondent number 2, which is the school, and sought clarification as to the mistake regarding the spelling name in his father, in his mark sheet, of his father in his mark sheet. That on this date, school denied responding orally and requested petitioner, directed petitioner to give a written complaint. That on this date, petitioner wrote a complaint, wrote an application, which was denied in writing by the respondent number 2, which is school. Thereafter, the petitioner on this date went to CBSE, confirmed as to why was this mistake, and it was brought to the knowledge of petitioner that this mistake was because of the incorrect entry made by him in the admission and withdrawal register of the petitioner. Thereafter, petitioner on this date wrote an application to respondent number 1, which is CBSE, seeking rectification of his name. As per bylaws, there are bylaws for that governs as to how your name will get changed. Thereafter, on this date, CBSE rejected the application of the petitioner, stating this is not within its power. And for the same, petitioner needs to seek a direction from a competent court of India. Aggrieved by the aforesaid facts and circumstances, petitioner hereby files the present writ petition. Once you write down all the facts, you are done writing facts, then you move on to the grounds of writ petition. What are your grounds? What is violated over here? Which fundamental right is violated over here? Which fundamental right is violated over here? Right to one right always gets violated. Anything which happens, that right is definitely getting violated. Which is right to? Come on, somebody.
Article 21.
Article 21. Diksha is right.
21
right
and
to
equality.
life. Aditi is right here. Right to life is getting violated. If he wants to appear, say in MBA examination, if he wants to procure a government job, his father's name is incorrect and his Aadhaar card will tell some other name. It disputes his identity. He looks like somebody else over here and somebody else over here. He will not be able to secure a government job, successful government job. He will not be able to secure a good a college in a, say, higher education, a good college, say, for MD or anything. Because his identity is in dispute now. Over here, he looks like son of XYZ. Over here, he looks like son of ABC. Who is he actually? There is confusion over here. So his right to life is getting violated here. Right to education is also getting violated here. Varun is absolutely right. Article 21E, which is a special right which Supreme Court has recognized, that your right to education, but right to education is from 6 to 14 years that they have right to seek education. Of course, you can take an analogy and take an extension out of it, that if I want to study further, I am unable to study because this mistake has happened. Secondly, your right to equality is getting violated. You being in a position wherein you could have secured admission in further colleges, you could have secured job, you are unable to do it, whereas all your other peers will be able to do it. So your right to equality is getting violated. So Article 14 and 21 will be the basis of it. Then you'll start mentioning the grounds in your writ petition. Now, once you're mentioning grounds, what is the best way? Don't just go by the law. Research, see previous judgments on this. Is there a judgment of Supreme Court or High Court which has dealt with similar matter? Oh yes, there are many on this issue. What was the contention over there? What was CBSE contending in those matter, and what were the petitioners contending in those matter? Look into it. Has High Court and Supreme Court settled down this controversy? Yes, there is a judgment of Jigya Yadav by Supreme Court. Jigya Yadav versus CBSE and others. Wherein Supreme Court has clearly now held that yes, bylaws need to be changed. They are redundant. They are not helpful to the petitioners. There are lots of cases arising out of such eventualities because of which courts are burdened. So let CBSE change its rules. They are very, very strict at the moment. So Supreme Court has settled this controversy in the month of June this year. So once I know that this is the final law, then accordingly I'll take my grounds. If suppose Supreme Court at the moment, however, in such matters have said that everything CBSE will make its own laws, everybody will first go to CBSE. CBSE will decide what it wants to do in such matters, and then thereafter, if that is rejected, then you go to the court. You directly don't come to the court now. Earlier also, though we were not going directly to the court, but a standard practice of CBSE was it was rejecting such cases, such requests for change of name, for correction of name, for amendment of name. Nothing was being entertained by CBSE, more or less, majoritarily. Of course, there are exceptions. So once I see what are the precedents, once I get an idea after reading a lot of judgments, then I write down my grounds. Violation of fundamental right, Article 21 and Article 14. Article 21A2, right to education as well, ancillary is getting violated. Then I elaborate on those grounds. Why is it? Suppose this was a voluntary change of name of his father. Suppose his father eventually had changed his name. So he was exercising his right of choice to choose his name. So over there, his fundamental right is now getting violated because you're not letting the documents being changed wherein his previous name was written. So depending on what strategy do you want to adopt, but strategize your entire matter as to how you want to go about it. And then once you are done strategizing, write the grounds. After grounds are written, then move to your prayers. Don't quote law. Don't put in copy-paste Constitution of India over there. You are looking at your pleadings. You are not trying to prayers. What do you want from the court? What is your relief from the court? So once you are done mentioning grounds, don't quote law in it. Mention judgment's name and in brief what the judgments say. Don't copy paste long paras from judgment and put it in the petition. It is of no use. Judge will anyway see the judgment and you'll be arguing the matter. Then mention the relief. What are your prayers? What do you want to seek from court? Once you have mentioned the relief, your first relief would be amend the name, amend/correct the name of the father of the petitioner in his class 10th mark sheet. Second relief would be amend/correct name of the father in all subsequent documents of the petitioner. 11th mark sheet, 12th mark sheet, any passing certificate, migration certificate, all other documents. Third relief would be litigation cost. Suppose petitioner has incurred 10,000 rupees as cost for litigation. You are seeking relief. That is upon court whether it wants to give you or not. And fourth relief would be any other order as this honorable court deems fit in such eventuality. And suppose court says that we don't want to amend your name, but we will redirect you to CBSE. CBSE will decide as to what needs to be done. So in that eventuality, it will direct me again back to CBSE, but there is a mandate. Now CBSE will have to check my application again. Earlier, it would have rejected my application saying that you have already once made application. Now, why are you coming to us again and again? Go to some other forum. But now CBSE will again consider it. So any other relief as this honorable court deems fit in the present facts and circumstances. Once you have mentioned your prayers, then you write petitioner and whosoever is the lawyer through this person. You write that through such and such lawyer. And on the next page, you put in an affidavit. Affidavit that whatever documents have been tendered, which are annexures, are true and correct, are not forged, are copies of the original. Whatever information has been mentioned by me in the petition is true and correct, is not forged, fabricated, is best to my personal knowledge, and the information received, which I believe to be true. Suppose law related information, grounds, what are there in the petition, those are not what a layman would know about. He doesn't know what Article 2114 is. Possibly he would know, but not in that much detail. So you put an affidavit thereafter, and then once the affidavit is there, then you file the writ petition. You put annexures behind it, and then you file the writ petition. Now, I am not sharing the entire 200 pages petition with you, but I'm just quickly sharing as to a small format how a writ petition looks like, though this is never such brief, how it looks like. It is a specimen which is there in the High Court of, you put the title, firstly, the heading, civil original extraordinary jurisdiction, because this is a civil matter which I'm talking about. Original means directly goes to the High Court, it is not an appeal. Extraordinary jurisdiction, you write the writ petition number, you write the title that this versus this, you write this is the petitioner, so Mansi Bhushan, let us say I am the petitioner, versus whatsoever respondents are there, CBSE and school. Then you mention that civil writ petition against whatever letter of CBSE or rejection of CBSE request passed by CBSE, which is the respondent number 2, under Article 226 or 32 of the Indian Constitution. Most respectfully show with, that depends. Every lawyer has different way of drafting. Howsoever you want to draft, you can draft. Then you mention, as I said, that on this petitioner went to school, went to CBSE, rejected, got the application rejected, now is aggrieved. Then you mention the grounds. What are the grounds? That petitioner is a student who was studying in a private school, but which was affiliated to government, but which was authorized and controlled by government. Therefore, it is violation of his fundamental rights and he is seeking enforcement against the state. You need to satisfy to the court that why you should not have gone in suit and why is this writ maintainable. Otherwise, court will dismiss your writ. Then you tell all the grounds and towards the end you write your prayer. As I said, whatever relief you want, 1, 2, 3, 4, you put it down in bullets. Then you write petitioner and through counsel whatsoever, date and place over there. Next page would be the affidavit. That's how you write a draft writ petition. Quickly speaking, what's the difference between writ and a suit? Writ, in this writ, locus standi is not something which is of eminent importance. A public interest litigation in form of writ can also be filed, whereas in suit, locus standi is very important. Second, in writ is, it can be filed by any person who's not even an aggrieved party. As I said, locus standi is not important. Over here, only a aggrieved party will be filing a suit. This is under Article 226 and 32 of Constitution. This is filed under whatever CPC, Civil Procedure Code, CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code, Negotiable Instruments Act, whatever law you are seeking remedy under that provisions you file it. In writ, it can be filed for legal as well as fundamental rights, and suit is for any sort of remedy, not just legal and fundamental. Of course, it can be for, say, a challan which is issued to you. State is issuing a challan to you. It is not for any of the fundamental rights. It is not for your rights wherein you were being sued. It is something, a direction, a compliance which was not done. And writ, it begins by filing a petition. Suit begins by filing a plaint. Plaint is given under order 6 and 7 of the CPC. What is pleading, what is plaint? So that you will study, I believe, when you will study your Civil Procedure Code. But that is how you go ahead by filing writ petitions and what exactly is writ petition. Please ask me any questions, whoever has any questions.
I have a question regarding, ma'am, what if we put emotional aspects if we are filing a writ? Suppose I have a case against a development authority, municipal authority or development authority, and they have under some scheme or what, they have occupied my land, and I have whatever that they have not compiled with the laws while forming that scheme. So I have asked them by filing by an application that this particularly you have not followed that, and matlab, all that matter done is done, and then I am going to court. And in case is that I mean, can I file or can I mention emotional aspects while I'm
Of course.
drafting that particular
Of
petition?
course. So suppose there isn't any proper mechanism as to who all can move out in lockdown, let's say, and you want to file a writ petition in the court against the whatever municipality or whatever is the governing body of your locality. Now you will go that you will write that I, being suppose you're a petitioner who is having say aged parents at home, since they are the sole earning members and it is important for them to go out because their job is as such which requires them to move out, it cannot be done virtually, and since we have no other earning left, therefore you will of course mention the difficulty, you can put in the emotional aspect of it, but you will not emphasize it on so much, you will emphasize on violation of your rights. So you'll say freedom of speech, freedom of movement is being affected over here, freedom of trade is being affected over here, trade and profession of your say aging parents. Therefore, there should be freedom of course, right to life is getting affected over here because they are unable to live properly, you are unable to live properly, whatever are these circumstances. Your focus should not be only on the emotional side of the matter, you should relate it with the fundamental rights or legal rights, because that is what you are seeking enforcement against, for violation of those rights and not for your emotional trauma what you are undergoing. And then thereafter, you will seek a mandamus that directs the municipality to come up with guidelines as to who all can move out and direct them to frame guidelines. Even if they are in place, then rectify them, amend them, improvise them at this point, or if they are not there, then frame them. That's how you go about it. Yes. Generally, while drafting, don't prolong, don't write too much, don't beat around the bush. Just stick to your points. Stick to whatever contentions are there, whatever grounds are there, and that should be the correct way to go about it. Don't just keep on repeating stuff again and again. That will not give you any benefit. Yes? Okay. Any other doubt?
Participants, if you're having any query, you can ask to ma'am, or else you can write it in the chat box.
I believe they have understood how to file a petition now. And we get writ petition number from, you get writ petition number once you file it in the court, in the filing section, be it High Court, be it Supreme Court. There they write the number, petition number, as to what is the petition number. They will allot your petition number. That will be your writ petition number. Next time, whenever you will be filing any subsequent application, say for relief or whatever, then you will be mentioning writ petition number. This, suppose 16 is allotted, 16 of 2021. Thereafter, all your subsequent proceedings, pleadings will have that petition number in your documents. But first time when you are filing, you don't know your number because that will be allotted by the High Court but not given by you. Can we move directly to Supreme Court? Yes, you can move directly to Supreme Court. But Supreme Court, just see whether, what matter are you moving for? Sometimes what happens is Supreme Court directs you back to a High Court saying that this is not something which we should deal with. High Court is competent enough to deal with. So just see as to what matter you are going for before Supreme Court or High Court. And even in High Court or Supreme Court, if there is an alternative efficacious remedy means effective, equally effective remedy if it is already there, or if you have not exhausted all your alternatives and you are hurrying to the court, then court will dismiss it. So accordingly, see as to the facts and circumstances and then decide.
If there
Any
are
other
any other
questions?
queries, you can ask to ma'am, or else you can write it in the chat box.
There is no mention of which writ we are using. Ishwara, I didn't get your question. You are saying that which type of writ are you filing in the court is what is your question? Writ petition, in suppose when you are checking the cause list or when you are seeing your case status in the High Court website or Supreme Court website, you will never see that which type of writ was being filed. It will simply a writ petition number, this of this. Once you'll read the petition, then you will understand that what type of writ was it seeking? What was it? Was it mandamus? Was it habeas corpus? Was it certiorari quo prohibition? Whatever it was, then you'll understand. But as such, in the title, you will never find that mandamus writ petition number this. This will never happen. I hope I have answered your question, Ishwarya.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, Hemang.
Ma'am, how will the court hear the other side?
I'm sorry?
How will the court hear the other side? If in this case, the court listen to the boys' issues, everything, how will the court listen to the CBSE side?
Right.
Why, this is the reason why I rejected this. How it will...
Right. So suppose say CBSE or say a criminal matter, a police officer against whom I filed, say a police station against whom I filed. Court will issue notice. On the first date of hearing, it will issue notice to the other party. That let the other party come, let me hear their version of the story also. This is what I hear, I understand what you want. But let me hear the other party, and upon hearing both the parties, then court will decide as to what it wants to do. Sometimes in some matters, there is an urgent relief what you're seeking, that you can't even wait for another day. You need an immediate relief in these matters. Suppose the child is filling a form, say for MBA. In the same example, what I told you in the entire session, he wants to fill a form of MBA. Over there, then let the court direct that as of now, let him fill the form with this name. If in case it gets changed, then it will be rectified. Or as of now, let the petitioner go ahead with the incorrect name which has come into his mark sheet.
Something
If
like
it
injunction.
gets changed, sorry?
Something like injunction.
Something like urgent?
Injunction.
Yes, something like injunction, interim relief it is called. That meanwhile, give me some relief at least, so that I am not in an adversarial position. So in that eventuality, court will give an interim relief, but will still hear the other side.
Okay, ma'am. So, like normal civil suit or criminal suit, even writ petition, there is hearing and everything, every procedure, but in a quicker way. Am I right?
Yes. So usually in writ petitions, evidence is not being done. As I said, there is no such witnesses coming in, deposing, cross-examination taking place. All of that does not take place. Court usually relies on documents and arguments of the lawyers and then go ahead and give the decision. That's the usual way. However, court is equally competent to conduct evidence even in writ petition. But as I said, it's a speedier remedy. Court sees it overall and then direct it. That okay, fine. We prima facie find that this is correct. What the petitioner is saying, we will give him relief.
This is general question. May I ask?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, have you ever seen it? What is the time frame which is you have seen in your experience the shortest order and the longest duration of it?
See, I cannot really vouch for that or say or promise you anything. This writ petition which I was talking about got done in 1.5 years. Even though there was pandemic, because of which there was for a longer duration of time there was no hearing at all. And in other writ petitions also similarly 1 year, 2 years I have seen within 1-2 years matters get resolved. However, in my personal experience, when I had sued my college in my college days because it was not granting me extra mark sheet, extra answer sheet while writing papers, so I had sued my university and my college. In that hearing, within a month, we had got interim relief. However, that hearing is still going on. That matter is still pending. It's been 3 years I have graduated from college, but at least interim relief was given to me because of which I could take extra answer sheets in my examination. So that completely depends. If interim relief is given to you and if there's no further hearing which is taking place in the matter, you are equally as good as you have won the matter. Though I mean, I know that eventually it can get overturned, but for the meantime, I am at a safer place. So it completely depends on the roster of the judge, completely depends on the circumstances, the effectiveness of the judge, the merits of the matter, and the graveness of the situation. So it can be safe for 10 years also or for say 1 year also.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Hemna.
Ma'am, there is a personal experience of mine. A writ petition was going on for 40 years. Civil
Okay.
that was a civil matter.
Hmm.
Same I was talking about.
Okay.
It is going on from 40 years.
Yes. So Hemna, you have another example here. 40 years can also be a time frame. So that completely depends. I cannot like guarantee or vouch for anything in such eventuality. Okay, Ishwarya asks, since for violation of fundamental rights, should one go to the High Court or Supreme Court? Completely depends. You should, as a lawyer, also see what is the roster of the judge. Whichever judge is sitting in which court and which judge is faster, or where is it likely to get a relief from. These are practical tactics what as a lawyer you should see. Theoretically speaking, as per law, if your relief is as such which violates your fundamental right, you can go to the Supreme Court as well. You can go to the High Court as well. High Court will be more effective, more speedier, because it will have lesser matters. Supreme Court might even reject your petition. And once Supreme Court rejects the petition, then again you draft a new petition, go to the High Court. That's a longer process. So practically speaking, I would say High Court if it's a state matter. If of course it is an interstate matter, then Supreme Court is your recourse. Okay, thank you.
Oh, excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, during this pandemic, there was a nationwide lockdown, because of which the entire country was under shutdown. There was no movement for people. Trades and commerce were suffering, and poor people were dying. And how do we go about it? How there were a lot of rights violated.
Right. So there were multiple writ petitions filed in Supreme Court and various high courts for looking into this matter, for migration of laborers who were traveling from one state to another state, who were on foot. There were a lot of writ petitions filed, and court on its own, court suo moto also heard matters. Court took up that issue by itself and said we would like to adjudicate on it. So court has given relief in such circumstances, because say law was not there at that time, implementation was not being done properly at that time. So how do we go about it? Possibly file a writ petition as soon as possible, you being a law student or a lawyer. And otherwise, court is also vigilant of such massive human rights violation or fundamental rights violation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Srijan.
I hope there is no more queries, so we can move to the vote of thanks. Further, I would like to move with a vote of thanks on behalf of Team Law Internship. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Advocate Mansi Bhushan ma'am for taking out time from our busy schedule and interacting with the young minds. It was truly an enriching session. Thank you again, ma'am, for sharing such wonderful experiences and knowledge with us. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And I had a wonderful bunch of students with me who were very interactive, attentive, and were asking questions. So keep it up. And I'm sure once you start interning and once you'll actually start drafting, you'll understand it in much more detail. This is something which I have given you an overview. Once you actually start drafting, you'll understand more nuances to it and you will do well. Point is to understand the concept and not little language tricks. This is not what I will teach you. That will happen with experience. But you need to understand the concepts first before jumping onto the nitty-gritties. This is what I believe in. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking here.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for coming over here. It was a pleasure. And thank you for teaching our interns how to draft a writ petition. It was a wonderful session, truly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.